This is Ian Hartley.
I am Warren Kay.
And I am Sasha Steenbergen.
Welcome to the Rediscovering God Dialogue.
We invite you to join us as we endeavor to see Him more clearly
And love Him more dearly while following Him more nearly. We welcome you to our next episode of Rediscovering God as we move from Genesis 19, where we spent 3 episodes, to now Genesis 20. And so we will pick it up at verse 1.
Abraham moved south to the Negev and lived for a while between Kadesh and Shur, and then he moved on to Gerar.
So Abraham would have moved west from Kadesh and Shur to Gerar, which is near the coast and 20 kilometers south of Gaza in Philistine territory. I think everybody knows where Gaza is right now. So you've got an idea, it's in the peninsula there. It's moving towards Egypt and so on. The reason for the move is not given, but it's probably because of a famine. Abram had previously moved to Egypt because of a famine. We read about that in Genesis 12. Isaac will later move here because of a famine. That's in Genesis 26. Jacob will also later become dependent on Egypt for food and then move to Goshen because of the famine and because Joseph was the ruler there. That's in Genesis 42. So, but let's get on with the story.
While living there as a foreigner, Abraham introduced his wife, Sarah, by saying, "She is my sister." So King Abimelech of Gerar sent for Sarah and had her brought to him at his palace.
So that's sort of very smooth. He just sends for her. So this is deja vu. Abraham did exactly the same thing with Pharaoh in Genesis chapter 12 and now repeats it. The previous event resulted in a terrible plague coming on Pharaoh as a warning that Sarah was Abraham's wife. Abimelech, however, is warned in a dream that Sarah is Abraham's wife. Isaac, his son of promise, will continue this deceptive way of dealing with challenges by passing off Rebekah as his sister. That's Genesis 26. And the grandson, Jacob, will deceive Isaac and gain the birthright by lying. The great-grandsons, Simeon and Levi, will deceive Hamor and Shechem and destroy their households in Genesis 34. So Abraham's family is a family of deceivers to at least 4 generations. I don't know if you guys want to confess what your family shortcomings are.
I'd rather talk about Abraham's family.
Okay, but I can't wait now any longer. I need to know, how old are we saying Sarah is at this time?
Yes, that's a very interesting point you're making.
Well, she's close to 90 years old. She has a son at 90, and she's a knockout. The king wants her.
She's still got it. I tell you, at 90, I couldn't even hold it in. This is good news. We clearly have a few things backwards in our society. But I have to say, I mean, I know this king, whoever this guy is, but I have to say, Sarah still got it.
Well, it's because we live in houses. They lived in tents and they roughed it, We have it too soft.
I love it. Go, Sarah. I mean, this is sad. This is sad for her. I'm sorry that, she's being taken. This is not right, but.
Okay, order. Let's get on with the story.
Yes, but that night, God came to Abimelech in a dream and told him, "You are a dead man, for that woman you have taken is already married."
So, the Lord can give dreams to anyone he wishes to. He gave dreams to Abimelech and Nebuchadnezzar, who were not part of Abraham's line. And we hear periodically about Hindus or Muslim people who have dreams from God.
Mm-hmm.
So it can happen. We're on with the story. This is really getting interesting now. This is the kind of stuff that, what are the bold and the beautiful? That kind of genre. Okay.
Let's see, where are we here? She's already married, but Abimelech had not slept with her yet. So he said, Lord, will you destroy an innocent nation? Didn't Abraham tell me she is my sister? And she herself said, yes, he is my brother. I acted in complete innocence. My hands are clean.
So look here. Abimelech doesn't know God, but he has this dream and then gets in a dialogue with God.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In the dream, God responded, yes, I know you're innocent. That's why I kept you from sinning against me and why I did not let you touch her. Now return the woman to her husband, and he will pray for you, for he is a prophet. Then you will live. But if you don't return her to him, you can be sure that you and all your people will die.
Okay, so here we have a very interesting situation. Abimelech is threatened with death if he does not return Sarah, and yet both Abimelech and God agree that he's innocent.
Mm-hmm.
So how come Abimelech has been threatened with death when it should be Abraham?
Well, but Abram was one that was the chosen one.
Well, I would hope that we are having a conversation about that he is being shown that bad things are going to happen. I can only hope this is prediction here and not anything to do with by my hand any of this would happen.
Well, yes, I'm going to agree with you. But here's the interesting thing, that it doesn't bother the storyteller at all. That the innocent man's going to be punished
Right.
for the guilty man's.
Right. Right. Well, because I think there's a little obvious bias here towards Abraham and his family. But yeah.
So let's read on the story. This is a very fascinating story.
Abimelech got up early the next morning and quickly called all his servants together. When he told them what had happened, his men were terrified. Then Abimelech called for Abraham. What have you done to us? He demanded. What crime have I committed that deserves treatment like this, making me and my kingdom guilty of this great sin? No one should ever do what you have done. Whatever possessed you to do such a thing?
Yeah, so this is the godless Abimelech, as far as we know, rebuking Abram, the blameless, lying prince of the Lord.
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
and I find, sorry, go ahead.
It's embarrassing for Abraham. It's embarrassing for the Lord. It's embarrassing for me, a distant descendant of Abraham's line through Jesus Christ. What's going on there?
Well, but at the same time, I'm also seeing that this godless king here, like, clearly has integrity at heart here, because he's very concerned that this would be a sin. And, how could you have, let me think that I could have this woman, or, not wanting to put himself in a moral situation.
So now here's Abraham's justification.
Abraham replied, I thought this is a godless place. they will want my wife, and they will kill me to get her. And she really is my sister, for we both have the same father, but different mothers. And I married her. When God called me to leave my father's home and to travel from place to place, I told her, do me a favor. Wherever we go, tell the people that I am your brother.
Thank you. So notice that Abraham states, I thought this was a godless place. So I think it's pretty clear that these people didn't know the God he knew, or at least that was his impression. Now look what happens in verse 14 to 16.
It's just fascinating that he didn't expect. I mean, this is a godless nation, and yet God is giving him dreams, and he's horrified to think that he could have done something immoral. So that's just to me a very fascinating situation that he's in. But verse 14, then Abimelech took some of his sheep and goats, cattle, male and female servants, and presented them to Abraham. He also returned his wife Sarah to him. Then Abimelech said, look over my land and choose any place where you would like to live. And he said to Sarah, look, I'm giving you your brother, in quotation marks, 1,000 pieces of silver in the presence of all these witnesses. This is to compensate you for any wrong I may have done to you. This will settle any claim against me, and your reputation is cleared.
It's amazing, isn't it? This guy really puts Abraham to shame by the noble way that he resolves the situation.
I wonder what Sarah is thinking, honestly. This is quite something.
You know, what we didn't talk about when you raised the issue of Sarah's beauty, Sasha, is why was she regarded as such a beautiful woman? It's possible that because they came from the Chaldees up north, they might have had a different skin color or some other racial feature that added to the desirability of procreating with Sarah. On verse 17.
Then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech, his wife, and his female servants, so they could have children. For the Lord had caused all the women to be infertile because of what happened to Abraham's wife, Sarah.
So this tells you that Abraham must have been living there for some time for it to be noticed that the fertility of Abimelech's house had been affected. So he hasn't just been there for a few weeks. So how do we reconcile verse 18, that God caused all the women to be infertile, with verse 6, where the Lord states that he knows Abimelech is innocent? If the Lord was going to punish anyone, it should have been Abraham and the women in his household. The Lord knows that Abimelech is innocent, so how can the Lord cause this infertility?
Well, I think, as Sasha suggested, that the story is being told from a biased perspective, where even though Abraham and Sarah both are lying, and agreed that that's what they would do right from the get-go, they seem to be seen as very noble, blameless people. And surely it's these godless people that God would act against.
So this is just plain prejudice, bias, on the part of the historian.
Yeah.
And the way it tells about the incident.
And it's a little hard when I'm reading it. Like, it seems quite arrogant, actually, to think that, this guy who was just lying, he's like, oh, I put a good word in with God, and, because I prayed to him, he's gonna, he made all these women able to conceive. I don't know, that seems pretty tough to sort of swallow it as written if that was the case.
What I find fascinating is that it seems that God's way of wiping them out was simply to not allow them to have any children. So eventually they would be wiped out. So it was a very non-violent way of dealing with that nation.
Okay, but I also have a hard time.
Well, I'm not saying it makes it right, but like when we normally think of the way that it was stated, we think, oh, God's going to kill them, but he doesn't work that way. He just doesn't let their women have any children, and eventually they'll just die off.
I know, but I can't accept that either, because I mean, I just feel like there have to be other causes for this, because if I think that God has good planned for all his children, I think to cause an entire group of women to be infertile and all the pain that would cause them, that would mean to me that if I was not in the right household, or if I was not in the right place, that God would cause that pain into my life either. So I don't know. I don't know that I can accept that as by God's hand. I mean, I'm just looking at the story of the women who couldn't have children and how they begged and pleaded, to have a child. And yeah, I don't know.
So you see, the problem underlying this strange way of telling the story is that the writer is unaware of the actions of who we call the devil. And he's doing this to Abimelech to put God and God's people in a poor light. But the writer doesn't know it. And so this is a supernatural event. So he blames God for it.
Mm.
Now, here's a parallel situation that mirrors this almost exactly. So it's when David numbers Israel. So we're going to read the story in 2 Samuel 24. 2 Samuel 24, and we need to read it, just a few verses.
Once again, the anger of the Lord burned against Israel, and he caused David to harm them by taking a census. Go and count the people.
Just before you go on, who's the active agent here?
Well, the anger of the Lord burned against him. It would be God caused David to harm the people.
Yes. So the active agent in 2 Samuel 24 is God, and he's influencing David to number Israel. Read another few verses, please.
Go and count the people of Israel and Judah, the Lord told him. So the king said to Joab and the commanders of the army, take a census of all the tribes of Israel from Dan in the north to Beersheba in the south, so that I may know how many people there are. But Joab replied to the king, may the Lord your God let you live to see 100 times as many people as there are now. But why, my lord, the king, do you want to do this?
So Job's not a particularly, what shall I say, religious man. He's a man of war. And he can see that the reason David's taking this census is to show how the nation has increased under his rule. And so it's really out of David's pride that he's doing this. And notice, if you can just read what the consequence is going to be.
Let's see, where does that start? Verse 15?
Yes.
So the Lord sent a plague upon Israel that morning, and it lasted for 3 days. A total of 70,000 people died throughout the nation, from Dan in the north to Beersheba in the south. But as the angel was preparing to destroy Jerusalem, the Lord relented and
just
said,
stop there, Warren.
okay,
So who's the active agent in the sending of the plague?
the Lord.
The Lord. And the plague does not strike David, who instigated this action, but it strikes the people. So you see, this is a parallel picture of what I would call divine injustice, as the story is told. David is the one who should be punished, not the people. So it parallels the story of Abimelech's woman being made infertile for Abraham's sin. So now there's another record of this incident, and it's found in 1 Chronicles chapter 21. Sasha, if you'll read that, please.
1 Chronicles 21. Satan rose up against Israel and caused.
Okay, stop there. Who's the active agent in this story?
Satan.
Yeah. Thank you. Please proceed.
And caused David to take a census of the people of Israel. So David said to Joab and the commanders of the army, take a census of all the people of Israel from Beersheba in the south of Dan to the north, and bring me a report so I may know how many there are.
Next verse.
But Joab replied, may the Lord increase the number of his people 100 times over. But why, my lord, the king, do you want to do this? Are they not all your servants? Why must you cause Israel to sin?
Okay, so here you have, we'd call it cut and paste. There's only one change. Instead of God being the causative agent, it's now Satan. So you can tell by the parallel wording that this is definitely the same incident. So you're left with a conundrum that Satan and God are working together, if you're going to take both of these stories as accurate, to destroy 70,000 so-called innocent Israelites. Like, I hope you see the conundrum that's going on here. The innocent are being destroyed and the guilty is going scot-free. And the causative agent in Samuel is God, and the causative agent in Chronicles is Satan.
Okay, get us out of this mess.
Wait, this is the part where you tell us that this was written a long time later, right? And that there was now an understanding of the role of Satan, right?
Yes, very good. So,
yes, I am paying attention.
So the Samuel story is written 1000 BC. David, King Saul, David, and Solomon are about 1000 before Jesus. Chronicles is written, it's one of the last books written in the Old Testament, about 500 BC. So it's 500 years later. And during that time, some appreciation, actually, here's the scoop. When they went to Babylon, carried off as captives, they learned about Ahura Mazda, yin yang, that there were two gods, one who was creative and good, and the other one who was wicked and destructive. And so now they come to understand that there is a supernatural evil being called Satan. And so the writer of Chronicles changes the causative agent from God to Satan.
I love that. Even because it's still in the Old Testament, it shows that there is this progression of coming to understanding and growth in the picture here.
Yeah. But I want the takeaway to be from this podcast is that when you look at justice in the Old Testament, it's not the way we see it. Like our understanding of justice is that the perpetrator should be punished. But what's happening in the Old Testament is Abraham's the perpetrator. He's the one lying about his wife. but it's the innocent people, so to speak, these godless innocent people that are being punished with infertility.
Yeah.
So I can't really explain that kind of justice. All I can do is notice it in these stories.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're spending the night here.
Yeah.
I fixed the bed up.
Okay.
It's all done. So, okay. Good night.
So I'm just wondering if there was a plague that killed a bunch of people, and they're grappling with what on earth caused this to happen? Why did these people die? And so then they rewrite history to put it on David and something that he had done that caused this death. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, during the Black Death in Europe, 1300 AD, we call it bubonic plague.
Mm-hmm.
And the people didn't understand that the rats were carrying this bacterium. And they noticed that the Jews were not getting it. And so the reason for that was that the Jews were practicing, what do you call it when you isolate people from the rest?
Well, isolation.
Yes. Well, they're practicing isolation that they got from the Old Testament.
Mm.
I'm just thinking of the word.
Yeah.
Anyway, it'll come to me in a minute. So the Jews get blamed for causing the Black Death because they're not getting it.
Mm.
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 And it's totally incorrect logic.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So then it really does matter who's telling the story, because if we're looking at this story that we're reading right now, it's very much in the interest of the storyteller to paint Abraham in this sense as the hero, who's sure fallible, but he's the godly one versus the ungodly nation.
Yeah. So history is always suspect, no matter who tells it, because they have their own bias. So, for instance, if you read a history of Canada told by the British,
Mm-hmm.
who came and took the land over, colonized it, or if you could get a history written by the Blackfoot or the Cree,
Mm-hmm.
they would be very different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And both of them would be sure that they were telling the truth.
Yeah.
About what happened.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Irma and I go typically on holiday, or we visit people, or we do something, and then we tell what happened to other people. And often our stories are very different.
Yeah.
About what happened. And we both sure we're telling the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, I don't want to lose this point. Justice in the Old Testament is very different to the way we see justice today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and when you said that, it made me think about in the New Testament how Jesus, it was a very great concern to him that the people were going to stand up for the widows, the orphans, the people who couldn't defend themselves, because in the Old Testament, I really see this in this story, that the women, they are the ones, there's no regard for them in this sense. And so it's like this bringing forward this inclusivity of saying all of my children are precious to me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And So it's more fitting to say that this is the kind of thing the devil would do.
Yeah.
Is cause pain to the defenseless, weaker group in this society. And in this case, innocent. I mean, it just doesn't fit with the character of God that Jesus gave to us. So I've made one point. The other point I don't want us to lose sight of is that there is a problem with honesty that is perpetrated generation to generation in this family.
It is an illustration of the statement that is in the commandments that this sin will be visited upon them to the third and fourth generation. And this habit was certainly evident to 4 generations.
So,
not that I really fault him. I mean, I really hear this guy. I mean, who wants to travel around really with this incredible woman who apparently everybody wants, and the guy is just afraid for his life. I hear it. I'm not judging him.
listen, you're enjoying this far too much.
Oh boy.
So we've done a chapter in a short space of time. And thank you for showing up, and let's pray together. Dear God, we want to tell the truth about you. And sometimes we don't because of our own biases and pettiness and prejudice and arrogance. And it's embarrassing to recognize this. And we thank you that there's forgiveness full and complete. You understand that we're born onto the mess on this planet and caught up with all its vagaries and vicissitudes and just the chaos on the planet. But we do want to represent you more clearly and show your love more dearly. Thank you for the inspiration you are to us. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Find the recording of our podcast on our website, as well as the PDF document that we've been using, so you can follow along or at least see all the passages. And so that website is rediscoveringgod.ca, and on there is the PDF document, the link for the podcast, as well as our YouTube link. We are now on YouTube. So if you want to see us live, then you can go and watch it on YouTube.
Wonderful. And we'd also love to invite you to our Monday evening Zoom discussion where Ian and Warren lead us out. And we are currently going through the podcast where we get to have discussion and really dive in a little deeper and get our most pressing questions answered. It's a really wonderful time of fellowship and connection with the group. We share in community and resources as well. We'd really love to have you join us. We're going to be meeting at 6:30 Mountain Standard Time. You just add in the link 403-506-9201. We'd love to see you.
And if you'd like to connect with us, you can reach us at rediscoveringgod2020@gmail.com. Send us an email. We'd love to hear from you and know how this journey of rediscovering the God that Jesus knew is changing your life. Take care.